let me just start by saying welcome to today's show. We're going all the way back down under today for more of our alien ancestry. And to do that, I'm going to be joined by two of my favourite guests. But before we get there, I am Kev Baker, and I'm coming to you from Smart City, Glasgow. We go all the way from America to Australia and just about everywhere in between, thanks to TFR Live today. Maybe not so much, but Twitch TV, and in a moment we will be on YouTube as well. And like I say, I'm not alone today. I've got two gentlemen joining me on the show. And to give you a taste of what we're getting into today, I'm pleased to say we're rejoined by Evan and Stephen Strong. Now, if you haven't have heard of these guys, get a load of this. It says, we are trying to change the world view of Australia and the Aboriginal people and culture and their effect upon human development and civilization. Something that they call the Out of Australia theory. Now, Stephen and Evan have co-authored a series of books, including Constructing a New World Map, Mary Magdalene's Dreaming, and Forgotten Origins. Now, Stephen Strong is a secondary school teacher with a background in archaeology and education, and Evan Strong has a background in social science and psychology. Now, they've spent many years learning and living with the Bundjalung Language Confederation and the Gamilaroi people of northern New South Wales. Their main brief is to prove, through science, fact, that which the elders insist is true. They've assembled facts about archaeological finds and also early contract accounts as well, genetics, serpent myths, dream stories, Amerindian myths, parallels in religious texts, and they put it all into one brilliant theory, the Out of Australia theory. And today they're back to talk about the destruction of history before our very eyes, ladies and gentlemen. And not only that, but the upcoming Our Alien Ancestry conference this weekend. And I'm looking forward to that because there's a subtitle of How Did We Get Here? So with all of that said, let me now go all the way down under to the guys down in Australia. There they are. Great to see you again, boys. Australia is getting crazier by the day. It's always a bonus just to be able to connect with you guys, right?
Well, yeah, it is getting crazier by the day, that's for sure. But I got to tell you before we start, Kev, I just about given up listening to mainstream news. Then I heard the news that just came on your station. I thought, finally, a news station I can listen to where the real truth is coming out there. So my congratulations to your station for that wonderful news inset we just listened to.
Yeah, the Onion News is it's a very satirical take on the world. And I think at this time, guys, you've been Australian as well. You've got a really good sense of humour. I mean, if you aren't laughing by now, you're either crying or you're not paying attention enough, right?
In our case, with what's happening here, you've either got to laugh at it or just go out the front there and just put yourself away because it's getting out of control here.
It truly really is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the underlying cause, but I find it interesting what's come out of that. And in Australia, I now believe, for the first time I'm going to say this, I think there is a concentrated, deliberate attempt right now in Australia to destroy every major sacred site there is. And that's something I never thought would happen in any country, but particularly this one. And sort of, yeah, you've got to try and walk away from this sometimes and think, well, yeah, it's just more of the same.
You know, Stephen, I don't do coincidences. And with the times we're living in and the great changes that we're going through, and you've highlighted it along with all the speakers you bring on to our Alien Ancestry conferences, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You know, getting back to those old ways, the old times, the old way of living, I find it no coincidence that they're trying to obliterate some of our sacred sites, some of those places where we really could go for safe refuge, for energetic reasons as we transition, you know?
Yeah. Look, the one what we're looking at or sort of hinting at is the site Now, it's got an original name, but because I can't put my mouth around it properly, I'm not going to insult people by using it. I think that's very important. It is known as the Gympie Pyramid. And just to give you listeners a bit of a background, I'm sure that most, if not every one of your listeners is familiar with a gentleman by the name of Graham Hancock. What happened was when he came to Australia, how long ago was that? About 5 years ago?
Something like that. Yeah. Time.
He came to Australia and he said, look, I'm coming to Australia, but I want to spend about 5 or 6 days with us on country at different sites, because he wanted to see what was here. And what's interesting, Kev, is the place that we said, oh, yeah, we've got some sites, and we rattled them off. And he wasn't happy, was he, Evan? He wanted one other one. And it's the one we went to first. And we'd been there, and it was the Gympie Pyramid. And Graham was absolutely obsessed with going there. And we drove him there, and on the way back, I was driving back, and I got lost on the main highway.
He had a better idea where we were going than you did.
Yeah, no idea what I was doing. I mean, I've driven that way about 40 or 50 times, but I still got lost. But anyway, he did remember that. But he also, when he went on that site, he'd done some prior research. And I've got to tell you, on occasions, he found rock formations, and it was like a little kid at the Christmas tree getting a new present. He was that excited. He said, look at this, look at the way the rocks are put together. This is exactly how they did it in South America. I said, well, Graham, actually, it's the way we did it. Now, South America copied. He was absolutely convinced that it is a legitimate site. And what it actually is, it's a 7-step pyramid. And as you go down each step, as you go up each step, because it's up on a hill, you get this line of rocks. And I think Evans just put some pictures in there as some photographs. Yeah, thank you. That were just taken naturally. Now, some people claim it was written by, and we've actually put up an article on our website where we went into the history of this. The mainstream claim is this, that an unknown, unnamed Italian or Middle Eastern or Middle European farmer grew grapes there. Now, I've got to tell you, this is a sort of a hill that runs quite steeply up, and the soil on it is so bad. Lantana, which grows around here into massive forests, I saw stands of lantana I felt so sorry for because they were pitiful. They barely grew. There's no topsoil on this. Now, here's the other point. There's not one piece of archaeological evidence it was ever made or farmed. There is no title deed that indicates. What they claim is this farmer just came along here, then farmed it for a while without permission, then left and built all these things, but we can't find anything. We also know that thousands of tons of those rocks you're seeing went into Gympie to build the church.
I'll just give you a photo of that.
Thank you. They ripped this place to pieces when they first got there and took all these amazing rocks and rebuilt them. Now, the thing is, the rocks were shaped. And if you look very carefully at those rocks, some of the rocks have incredibly sharp lines, and you've got to ask yourself, and I looked at them, knowing that original people only have stick, stone, bone technology, the thing I was looking for was percussion points, because if you're going to make angles like that, you've got to smash the rock very finely, a hammerstone, and get that angle. There's not one percussion bulb in them. They were cut. Now, there you go. Thank you, Evan. There's a picture, and that is known and agreed by everyone to have come directly from the walls and the makeup of the Gympie Pyramid. And when you look at the rocks, the way they go together, you think, my God, this is straight out of South America.
Yeah, that looks very, very similar indeed. The kind of thing you barely get a credit card between the gaps in the rock there, you know.
That's the one you're looking at. Now, I've got to tell you, when these people from Gympie, when they first found this, they didn't say, oh, let's take these rocks and shape them. They just took them. It's well known. They took them, and people don't want to talk about that, and they just reset them in the arrangement they had. And Evan's putting up pictures now of these rocks to show people this is what they found and this is what they put there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at that, if someone was to tell you, oh, that's just a natural arrangement, because that's how they found it, and look, there's no fill inside there, they just put it in like that. So what happened was, when we first went to Gympie and first heard of it, and when we wrote about it, for probably 10 years, the talk had been a road was going through. A road was going through, a road was going through. And every time we hear about the fact of roads going through, but it's not, but it is, and it is. And this went on for such a long time. Then all of a sudden, right now, and we won't mention the times we're in, everybody knows about it. Nevin's just putting up shot after shot for you. Right now, they decided this was the time to blow the place up. And I do mean blow it up. The blades are actually on the site right now. Now, what happened was that the traditional accepted by the government, Booker is accepted by the government as the traditional custodian and owner of that site. He, along with, I think, 3 other elders, weren't they, Evan?
Yeah.
They were on site, which they have the right to be, Kev. Then all of a sudden, around about 100 police, armed police, turned up as a mass to arrest these 4 people. Now, you've got to say to yourself, why do you need 100 people to arrest 4 elders? And Diane's, what's she, about 75, isn't she?
Oh, no. But I think what I was told is most of the people arrested were above 55.
Well, that's right. Sorry, above 55. Got the numbers wrong. Yeah. So that's what they got. None of them were armed. Nobody were waving protests. They were just standing on site and arrested. A Booker was locked up for a couple of days, wasn't charged, which, by the way, is against the law. If you lock someone up, you have to charge them. Well, they didn't do that. And now what they're doing is they're on site now, they've fenced it off, and if you go onto the site, you will be arrested and put in jail because of a trespass. Because the site doesn't belong to them now. The Australian government, or the Queensland government in this case, with the backing of the Australian government, are now going to destroy that site. Now, you only got to go back 1 year ago to the oldest site in inland Australia, which was Yukon Gorge, when it was blown up. But, Kev, there's good news here. The Parliamentary Committee of Australia had an investigation into what happened, didn't they, Evan?
Oh, they did. They had a
6-month investigation.
Group.
Oh, working group. They went into it some time, Kev, so I don't want you to give up on the mainstream in Australia. And they came out with findings, which were secret, of course, as it had to be, because it was information that we didn't need to know about. And, Kev, no one was charged, no one was fined, and no actual change to the rules was put in. I know right now Adami, which is up in Queensland, the group up there are fighting because they're going to destroy a massive sacred site. They're just going to dig the whole thing up and take it away and throw it somewhere else. They have the right to do that. And there's nothing the original people there can do to stop this. In the same state, in Queensland, that's what's happening now. So, what's going on? Well, these guys have gone through all the legal processes for the last, God knows how many years, for decades, and this is where it's got them. They can't win. So now what they're trying to do is I think they had a protest meeting last Saturday. The elders are coming onto our show. We've got 3 coming on. Auntie Bev is going to talk about the spiritual significance and the truth of the site.
Auntie Minnie.
Oh, sorry. Oh, God, thank you. Auntie Minnie Mace is doing that. We have so many elders, I get mixed up sometimes. And then Diane and another elder are going to talk about exactly what's happening now and how they need help. And I didn't think it was right. But we talk.
That's okay. It's a new follower over on Twitch. Don't worry about it. It's an alert.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at my end. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so what we're looking at now is what I think is what you've just said, an institutionalised, concerted attempt to take the major sacred sites out. Now, I've got to tell you that Yukon Gorge is the oldest inland site in Australia, and it was, I think, 46,000 years old, and I think it's much older than that. And it was also the site, I've mentioned this before, for the 7 Sisters dreaming. All 7 sisters were part of that site, which makes it an incredibly important metaphysical, mystical and magical site and spiritual site. Now, that's what I can tell you about the Gympie Pyramid, is I'm allowed to talk about what it really is. And it's not just a pyramid. I remember the time we were taken up there, and you were there too, weren't you, Evan?
Yes.
We were taken up to the very top of the hill, and we sat on this amazing rock, which was obviously not, it's like a bowl. And we were told stories for the next, half hour, didn't we, Evan?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, of people who'd gone up there, sometimes pushed up in wheelchairs, sometimes hobbling up with 2 sticks to get them up there, with some of the most horrific medical conditions that mainstream people could not solve. They couldn't fix. They were in trouble. And then we heard stories about the same people walking and running down the hill after they sat inside that. And we've heard many, many stories about this being an amazing healing site, an incredibly spiritual site that can heal people. And I've got to say there's a lot more to the site that the Gympie people want kept secret, that is hidden, that won't be hidden once the blade hits them. There are so many levels to this. There are the levels that people know about, that have been allowed to be spoken of, and there are levels that aren't known about, that only a few elders know about, and we don't know. We've heard rumours of stuff that I won't even say on any radio station, but it's at that level. To me, that site is like the Yukon George of Queensland. And it looks like now there is nothing that can be done. There's not one politician that has stood up and said publicly this is wrong. Yes, the media, and we got into trouble for this, didn't we, mate?
Yeah.
Big time, because we said the media have done nothing. Well, that's not quite true. They've gone there and they've filmed it and explained exactly what the government has said as to why they're doing it. But did they interview the elders and ask for their side of the story? If they did, it never got shown. So yes, the media have covered it, but like everything now, the media always cover things the same way, without exception. It doesn't matter what channel you go to. You can go to any channel you want now and you will get the same story, word for word. It doesn't vary anymore. So we're now in a situation where, look, I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I just don't see how it can be saved, but I also don't see why. And I just think that anyone that cares is obligated to help in any way they can. Now, I don't know exactly what Diane and the others, what their plans are, because it's not our site. And what we've just offered to do is we changed our whole talk so that we took one of our speakers out, Dr. Rita Louise, and she agreed to that, and she thought that she should go out and be on the next talk because this is so important. So I'm sort of sad that we have to start with something that's really an appalling story. It sort of, Kevin, beggars belief that when all of the elders, I mean, we've been on sites often, haven't we, Evan, where one group of elders say one thing, don't they?
Yep.
And they get somebody to say the opposite, and they sign off on it, and off they go, right? At Yukon Gorge, they didn't do that anymore. Everyone said no. In fact, they rang them the week before and said, we think you're doing something, don't touch it, leave it alone. And they did it anyway. Now it seems that token gesture of finding a group of original people who are poor and paying them off, and I'm telling you, that's what they've done every time, without exception. They don't even do that now. They save the money, don't they, mate? Mm. The brown paper bag is no longer in use now. They just go straight ahead. They don't even bother getting a token agreement.
How old are we talking about? How old are we talking about with this site, guys?
Oh, nobody knows, because no one's been allowed to do. I mean, we went and did. We went and looked at all the archaeology that was done. And I can tell you, and I'm not going to mention his name, and it's in the article we've done, you can see it on our website, they chose a person of high standing, an archaeologist, who came to the site, stood at the bottom, and I know for a fact, stood there as long as it would take to eat a packet of chips, and then walked away and said, I see nothing there that's original. Didn't walk to the top, didn't walk halfway up, stayed at the bottom, and made a token attempt. Now, who was paying him? Oh, well, he does work for a university, and he does get paid by the university, and we won't go down that path, but it's pretty obvious what's happened there. That is it. That is the only piece of archaeology was done, and because of what he said, the government have used his statement about it's not legitimate, and then they hired a consultancy company. We know this company. We've dealt with them before. And they are just puppets. They say what they're supposed to say. So, yeah, it's been known, it's been looked at, and now it's been dismissed. And what they have never done is they've never listened to the Gympie people. And they're the custodians of the site. It's acknowledged that Booker is the custodian of the site by the government. But what they're saying, yeah, you're the custodian of the site, but everything you've said is a pack of rubbish and we know better. So that's the new way we do things in Australia now. We don't ask the people involved anymore. We find an organisation, be it an academic or a company that works in the field, pay them in advance, give the conclusion, and then get them to write it up. And that's exactly what's happened here.
It's absolutely shocking, guys. And in one of your previous conferences, you had on Dr. Charles Koss. And I was shocked when he was going over some of your megalithic sites and the fact that when the British and the French went over there, a lot of the sites were destroyed and then repurposed, and a lot of the towns that were built up, a lot of the big houses, the fancy houses, all of that ancient sites destroyed, obliterated, just so they could build up the new world. And here we are again now at the change of an age, and they're obliterating sites and building up this crazy new world.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes a lovely church, doesn't it? It's a lovely church, but you look at those rocks and they're sharp. They've been cut. They weren't just banged out of the ground, or what original people did do when we work with rocks. What did we do with the rocks? We picked them up and put them somewhere, didn't we?
Yes.
That's recently, but when we go back further, that's what I'm getting at. My understanding, simply because of the way the rocks have been built and the way they've been cut, is we're going back into the 5-figure amount for this one. I believe it's 5 figures. It's been going on for a long, long time. Now, the Gympie people would know exactly what that is. The Gympie people, I've got to get that right. They would know exactly the timescale involved in that, but of course they haven't been asked. They haven't been asked. At no stage, as through the whole time this has all happened, have they been consulted, asked, or acknowledged. Oh, actually, they have. They've been put in jail a couple of times, haven't they?
Yes, exactly.
They've been this is not the first time they've been put in jail, by the way. And it's always over the same thing. It's not because they spat on someone. It's not because they wrote graffiti anywhere. It's because they stood on their land and said, this is a sacred site. Well, that's actually against the law now, isn't it?
Mm.
It is actually against the law. And you've got to remember, Kev, in Australia, Australia now is under martial law. It has been now for nearly 2 years. And it's not changing. In fact, we do have a situation. We should tell them about that, shouldn't we? We have a situation now that one of the premiers, because each premier of each state now, they run the country. They don't even actually call, they might call Parliament once every 4 months together to tell them what they're doing. But in the state of Victoria now, they've passed another law. And this is to give you an idea how much this has become a totalitarian state. And that law says the following. If your mask that you are forced to wear outside is not fitting correctly, or you haven't worn it, you'll be fined $90,000 and up to 2 years jail. Now, that's the law in this country now. Welcome to Nazi Germany, but now that's just giving you the fact. I want to make the point that don't think it's just the blackfellas are being picked on now. Everyone's being smashed. But right now, this place, I've been on the top of it, and I can tell you what they said about that table up the top is true. Well, they don't want that out, Kev. They don't want people learning about that and then saying to themselves, well, what's going on? What about these other sacred sites? Have they got the same power and spiritual awareness as this place? And why are they destroying them all? And the answer is, it doesn't matter whether it's Carry On, where they're subdividing and putting houses in there. It doesn't matter if it's Gympie, where they're going to destroy it. I know the Adami mob up there, which is a coal mining venture Australia has just gone into, which is a great idea right now, I've got to tell you. That one, they're going to lose that. There's nothing that can happen there. And I hope that tens of thousands of people go to that site and protest, because that's the only way. And maybe people start writing to the government and whatever else the cubby says. I know they're trying to go to court. And I know at the moment I know what their bank balance is, and I've got to tell you, if they don't go to court, they can't challenge it, and they need so much money to get to court. If they don't get to court, then it's done. And I'm not even sure if they get to court, it'll be saved. But at the moment, it's an appalling situation, and it's a precursor for so much more to come. Once they get this one done, once they destroy this site, honestly, it's open slather. It's funny because for the last 10 years, all we've ever done is try to fight for the recognition and the saving of sites. And at the moment, we've got a track record of nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. We have not managed. Everything we've got is denied or under the threat of destruction or has been destroyed. And that's basically Aboriginal original archaeology in Australia right now.
And with everything else going on, like you say, the tyrannical mandates, the surveillance that's going on, it must be quite hard to kind of galvanize support behind this cause, because everyone's kind of dealing with all the other kind of stuff going on in the world just now as well, right?
That's why they did it now.
Yep.
That's exactly why 20 years have been saying they're going to do it, they're going to do it, they're going to do it. It's been going on for so long, it's like a standard joke. And then one day, right now, when everyone's not allowed to go outside, if you go and make a protest right now, they use what is called non-lethal rounds. We know what that means, rubber bullets. They actually bash you. They'll throw you on the ground, and when you're laying on the ground, they'll spray pepper spray in your eyes. We know, we've seen them do it. You go out and protest right now, they photograph everyone there, and then you're served and you go to court. And when you go to court, the national media is there to film you when you come out and harass you for doing what you've done. And they know that's what you get. Nobody, if you do a protest in Australia, the media are not allowed to film it. They are not allowed to put up drones, are they? No. To show the number of people there. And they just come on en masse and they just bash you. So that's the trick. Under those conditions, knowing that's what happens in Australia, and nobody is allowed to have a protest unless they get the agreement of the government, well, you can imagine your chances there are nil and none. So they've got everything working for them to do this. But my point is, I swear to you, Kev, it will not stop at that. They'll clean this country up and destroy all the sacred sites and kill all of the churches. And they will basically destroy the original religion when they kill the sites. They know that. You take the sites away, where do you do your ceremony? Right? Where do you do your ceremony? Where do you give your thanks? These are sacred sites that are supposed to be sung up time after time after time. Well, how can you sing up a hole in the ground? They're doing it.
You know, our Uncle Donny down under as well, he's talking about how they're putting a dam on his ancestral grounds right now.
It's all over the country, mate. Look, we know of about 5 or 6 at the moment, right? We know of 5 or 6 at the moment, but I didn't know about Donny's one. There's another one. I only found out about the Adami one 4 days ago. And I'm not even trying to look. They sneak through. They're happening all over. This is what we're hearing. This is happening everywhere. Anything that's really important, they're finding any reason they can get. And what they've got now is, you've got to remember, the archaeologists in this country, I mean, it's funny, a couple of days ago, oh, yeah, there's a picture there. I haven't just found some breaking news there. What's that, Reddy Ed?
They found out he'd not consulted anyone.
An elder, yeah.
One elder, yeah. Usually they pick one group or one elder, and then, yeah.
He's on trial for fraud after allegedly striking a multi-million-dollar mining deal on native title land. You know what's interesting about that? He's on trial for it, and I'll guarantee you, most blackfellas are poor. He's on trial, but what about the mining company that was involved in the fraud? How come they're not on trial?
It's one rule
That's what
for
I find
them.
interesting.
It's one rule for them and another rule for us guys.
Yeah, oh, look, there's a picture of his name. He's charged with 2 counts of fraud, and he obviously took the money because they're doing that everywhere. But I find it interesting. They're going to fine him. They'll put him in jail, and they'll shame him and everything. I don't think he should be shamed. He's a victim A person, he would never have taken the money if the mining company hadn't struck up a deal without the consent of the other traditional owners. Now, he used hundreds of thousands of dollars for personal use. They gave him the right to do it.
Yep.
That's what people don't understand. What they're saying was he took the money and then used it on himself. If the mining company hadn't have done that, he wouldn't have taken the money, he wouldn't have been in jail, and he may not have fallen into the fact, like a lot of blackfellas, nearly every one of them, they're all poor. When someone comes around and says, here's $100,000, come on. And then he gets punished for it, but they don't. And that's what we've got here at the moment. When they are caught, like there, where they're caught, where this guy gave them the land and gave them the right, when they're caught, they don't get into trouble. The person who was doing their bidding that they paid gets into trouble, and the mining company stand above it and don't even go to court for it.
It's infuriating. It definitely is. It's one big club and we ain't in it. But you know, all of the Gympie Pyramid stuff is very frustrating. It's very negative when we think about what's going on in Australia, over here in the UK, America, all around the world with the COVID craziness right now. But one thing I was really encouraged to hear came from you guys, and it was about a teacher who was kind of changing the game. And
we need to. I'm glad we did that first. I don't want to finish with that because it leaves a sour aftertaste. So I'm glad you brought that up. Mate, I've got to tell you, this is something that's very close to my heart because the school this is happening in, I was working in the high school there that took the kids from Moree East Primary to high school. My wife was working in Moree East Primary School, and Evan,
I attended.
He went to Moree East Primary School. So obviously I'm going to declare an interest here. I'm obviously quite partial to the school. But I've got to start by saying, we were just talking about the government, weren't we? Well, here's something different. The government last year gave the Minister of Education's award to this school. And what they're doing is something that I'd like to see in every infants and primary school in Australia and in the world. It is so revolutionary. I was working at Corelli, the high school there, and we put in some amazing programs. And yeah, I personally did a lot in that school, and I've still got a fairly high reputation in Moree because of what I did. And I was trying, and I did. I got a lot of original kids to go to university because I taught the AB studies there. I sort of tutored them through the whole thing. But you know what, mate? I was sticking my finger in a dam that was leaking all over the place because when I got those kids, they were 12 and 13. And they were pretty well set in their ways. Yeah. And yeah, I helped quite a few kids, and some kids I couldn't help. And when I left, then it went back to the way it was before again. Now, at this school, when this gentleman went there the first day, he told me when he went there the first day, he went to see the principal, and there were around about 30 kids, mainly black kids, original kids, lined up, ready to be suspended that day. That's one class, basically, full of kids that weren't going to school that day because they had done something that meant they had to be suspended. And that was the track record there. Now, no one gets suspended. I've seen pictures of the kids there, and they have these massive smiles on their face, and they aren't stuck on smile for the camera smiles. They're just deep from within. The kids love it. And what they've done is this, and Matthew's going to talk about this more than once. He won't get it all done in one thing. And because the Minister for New South Wales has said this is the best program last year, I don't understand why they haven't done it everywhere else. So we're going to have to force them. What has he done? Right. He's a keeper, and he goes to his elders for permission. They have chosen 10 dreaming stories, and that is the curriculum from kindergarten, year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way up to year 6. All of the kids, their content is not what it used to be. It's not books. It's not Captain Cook came here at a certain time and did this. It is 10 dreaming stories. Now, what they do is they've graded the dreaming stories from the simplest to begin with for the kindergarten kids, which has a simple moral, through to year 6 where the morals and the stories are much deeper. Now, the dreaming stories is the content upon which the numbers and letters and words and reading is based. It is not, let's read our textbook anymore. Now, the dreaming stories are given orally by this Matthew who's there, the dreaming story keeper. And what he does is he tells them the stories, and then all of the teachers here, this is where it gets interesting, Kev, have to learn the language. This is where it changes. These are white teachers who have been told, now they don't have to learn all the language, but they've got to learn all the proper words they're going to talk about. They've got to understand them and learn how to say them. So they have to do in-service courses, not the normal ones where they work out new ways of marking and new ways of ordering kids and new ways of doing tests, which is normally what they're about.
Yeah.
They have to learn how to speak the language properly so they can tell the dreaming stories. So they make their way up. And the first dreaming story, I think, has got the blue emu in it. I'm not sure because I've only just started to hear this. Matthew will talk about it in more detail. And what happens is the older kids, which is the way it used to be, as they go further along, they learn their job is to look after the young ones. And if they ever make a mistake, to step in straight away and say, no, don't do it this way. Because they've learned higher dreaming stories. And when you learn your dreaming stories, you learn responsibilities that go with that. Now, these dreaming stories are not making, their role is not to give them a great mark in NAPLAN. Their role is to make children become good people. And they learn morals about how to be good, how to care, how to worry about other people, and how to learn empathy. This is the most important part of what they learn. So all of a sudden now, you have a school that has the highest suspension rate in the state to a school that has no suspension at all. Well, my point is this, if that's working there, and by the way, half the kids are original, half are not. Now, if the white kids didn't like it, shouldn't they be lined up being suspended? If they didn't like it, they would be the ones, wouldn't they? Because people would say, oh, yeah, you've looked after the black kids, but the white kids aren't picking it up. I would say to them, there's a saying, and I think you've heard this one, give me a child at 7 and I can make the man or woman. Here they've got them 5 through to 12, non-stop. You can make people. You may not make Rhodes Scholars, but you probably will, because I'll tell you what, if children are interested in the content and engaged in the content, I know as a teacher, I had to try and make the kids sometimes, I was teaching mainstream, mate, it was hard with the content. I got shit content.
It's even the same with an adult. I mean, if we're like trying to do something that we're not interested in, it's a slog. Who can be bothered doing that?
It's a slog because they don't want to do it. And sometimes the kids who are the most engaged and the most intelligent are the first ones we leave.
Yeah.
So they walk away saying, this is boring as crap. And it is. I mean, for God's sake, when we're in high school, the kids were reading Lord of the Rings. I remember 40 years before when I was high school, I was reading that. And nearly all the books in high school they're reading today are ones I read. And I hated them. In fact, I never read a book until I was in year 12. I used to buy the cheat notes and read it that way. I wasn't going to read a book on that crap. These kids are loving the stories and adopting the stories and embracing them. And what they've got is Matthew is a consummate storyteller. I would say in past lives, that's what he is. And the elders have chosen him to do this. And what this is doing, it's culturing up not just the black kids. It's culturing up all of the kids. And what's going to happen? And I've got to tell you, Kev, quite recently I went back to Moree. I took the rocks and the skulls back there because some of the teachers and some of the people that still knew me asked me if I'd come back. I said, yeah, I'll come back and do it for free. And I got one of our benefactors to pay our way there so I didn't have to charge a cent. And I taught kids from Moree High and from Corrali. And I remember when I got the kids from Corrali, which was a school that I taught at, and I took them out on the oval, and the teachers were petrified that their kids would go ballistic because they had no control over them. And when they brought them towards me and they were walking with them, these kids had no interest in those teachers. And the teachers were scared of the kids. I could see it. And I thought to myself, my God, this is not how I left Corrali. This is hopeless. And what's happened is these teachers can't teach the culture, which is what I was doing. Therefore, it was easy for me because they liked that. But they're not engaging the kids, and the kids are not engaged at all. And I could see that. The kids were fine for me. In fact, they were quite shocked about that. In fact, at the end of the day, the principal at the school said, "Do you want to work for us?" I said, "No, mate, I live 600 k's away and I'm not teaching anymore." But what I'm getting at is because I could see those kids now, they're not interested in teaching at all. They're not interested in anything that's happening in that classroom, every one of them. There might have been 2 or 3 that were forced to listen because their parents were on their back all the time and they would sit and do their work in the classroom, but most of them don't. And they're getting suspensions every day because this program yet has only just begun. Once it's been running for 6 or 7 years, and then the high schools pick it up because they have to. This is my point. Once they do that and they continue it, they may have to teach other stuff as well. I get that. They're going to have to teach other stuff as well because they've got to do exams and stuff, but it can still be there. That content can still be there in the English. They can still put it into all the different programs. It can turn up, not as much, but it'll still be there. You'll keep them forever. You'll keep those kids forever. And I remember when I kept the original kids at Corrali, the year I left, we had, I think, about 28 kids doing Year 12. And when I started there was one kid doing Year 12 and he pulled out halfway through. 28 original kids doing Year 12, which shows you one thing. If the original kids are engaged, they will do education, because there are some people saying, oh, they just can't do it. That's a lie. They can't do something because they're bored to death with what they're being told. I mean, if you go to a class and they speak in Greek and you can't speak Greek, Kev, you're going to get bored, and so am I.
Yep.
There's no other way around it. And if they're speaking in a foreign language to these kids, which they are to an extent, they'll get bored. This program, and what I've got to say is this. People might say it's an original program. I would say to you, no, it's not. No, if you go to America, the American Indians have culture. You go to South America, the Mayans, they have culture. It's still there. It can be taught. If you go to England, and I mean this too, don't you have Druids there?
Yep.
Isn't that part of the old way? Wasn't paganism the same? It's no different. Paganism is exactly the same as what we're talking about. There is nowhere on this planet that can't go back and find the old way teachings and the old ways of doing things and teach it. And I can guarantee any teacher that does it, because I did, if you start talking about this stuff, you get the black kids on side, but there's something that you don't understand. You get the white kids on side too, because they love it also. They love hearing these stories. They do. I mean, kids, when they're little kids, they love hearing dreaming stories. My wife, when she was at Moree East Primary, they were reading them dreaming stories. And the black kids and the white kids loved it. They wanted to hear them all the time. It's already inside us, and it doesn't matter whether it's colour. These sort of stories are people don't understand. We're all incarnated. And for thousands and thousands of years, when we were kids, this is the sort of stuff we heard. It's only recently when one race, the white race, went away from paganism. And really, when you think about it, that only happened about 1,000 years ago.
Yep.
Before that, this is the sort of stuff we were all hearing as kids. And that's what people don't get. If we bring that back, we will bring back our memories of the past and what we've learnt under different situations and make our children better people. So for me, when I heard about what Matthew was doing, I begged him to come on. And then he told me last time, he said, I'm not going to get through this in one go, didn't he? And we just said, don't. Do what you can this time. Then we'll keep bringing you back until you finish it, because it's so important, Kev, because as you know, we believe there's a change that's coming and it's nearly upon us. And that's why this other stuff is happening at the same time. But even after the change, if we go back to the old education system, you know what we'll create? What we got again, what we got now. We have to change the way our children are brought up so that they don't fall into the trap of becoming greedy and competitive and not caring about other people and not understanding that there's an underlying purpose for being here, that there is a creator, that there is spirituality, and it answers all the questions that people wander through life not understanding. And when they don't understand that, Kev, they do other things, bad things, because they can't see why they're here and what this all means. These dreaming stories goes straight to the nub of the most important things we should be taught as children. So that's why I think this has got so many levels to it. And that's why we said to Matthew, this is far too important to rush. Get through what you can the first time, go slowly. Because when we had him and he sort of did a practice, he tried to sort of rattle the stuff off, didn't he, Evan? Mm. And it was a bit like, oh, my God, I'm listening to a staff room meeting. Oh, God. No, I said, Matthew, don't do that. Don't rush. Take your time. Yeah. Just do one story, set it up, and take us through this like we are kindergarten children. Because honestly, most of us are when it comes to this sort of stuff, Kev. We don't know most of this stuff.
No, we were never taught. For me, when I heard you guys talking about this, I mentioned it to the audience, and they agreed with me. This is the kind of thing we need to be hearing about. This could be a game changer when you really think about it, guys, if this was to be adopted nationally and then all countries around the world. And like you say, why shouldn't we all be celebrating our cultural history? So, yeah, I really love this. Now, Evan, you found a quick clip here. I'll try and play it. Yeah, see what this is all about it here. Count to 10 in Gomeroi. Is that correct? Is that how you say it? Gomeroi?
Gomeroi. Yeah, yeah. We know Gomeroi. I didn't know you put that up.
One is Mal.
Mal. Number one. Mal. One. Mal.
Two is Bulla.
Number two, Bulla. Number two, Bulla. 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 Three is Gulliver. Gulliver. Number three, Gulliver. Gulliver. Up to that. Number three, Gulliver. 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 Gulliver.
Four is Bulligar.
Number four, Bulligar. Bulligar. Bulligar.
Five is Ma.
Number five, Ma.
Six is Julie.
Julie. Number six, Julie. Seven is Gulai. Number seven, Gulai.
Eight is Galai. Nine is Miral.
Number nine, Miro. Number nine, Miro.
10 is Banai.
Number 10.
Ma. Bulla.
Gulliver.
Bulligar. Ma. Bijou.
Gulai.
Galai. Miral. Banai.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay.
I like it.
You take it off.
There you go.
Well, I would say to people, if you want your child to be happy at school, the one thing I've noticed about this when I've seen the kids is that they're enjoying themselves.
Very much so.
And I really think that I've always said when I was a teacher, if you go through a classroom, if you want to hear where the good teachers are, go to the classroom where the kids are laughing. And you'll know if they're laughing, there'll be learning taking place. Because when kids smile, they listen. And when they don't smile and when they frown, they don't listen to you. And what you're seeing there is kids who come from the most disadvantaged backgrounds you can imagine. You can't even begin to imagine where some of those kids are coming from and the difficult start to their life they've got because of the fact they're living in a place where there's no money, no anything. But when they come to school, if they start thinking like that and feeling happy, it doesn't matter. All the other problems go away to an extent because you can excel. Every child can excel if they have a chance to. And I think that situation, that schooling, you're seeing what's happening there. You told me about this one seat there, which is the seat where kids who don't have friends sit and other kids come over to them when new ones come there. They've got a special seat to look after kids who are new there so they can become part of the tribe. And it's fascinating, mate, because to begin with, it's an old way thing. Because when you go to a new tribe, old way, before Cook came, if you weren't of that tribe, you would sit somewhere, a given place, and you'd wait until someone would come up to you and give you some food and stuff and then bring you down to meet the others. They've gone to that level of connection to culture that they have this special seat where the kids who are new are they're not having friends at the moment, wait for someone to come and pick them up and become their friend and take them to the others. So it's not just an academic thing. This culture permeates the whole of the school. Those names are everywhere. I mean, they also learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but they learn those numbers more so than they learn the other ones because I already know them, but they're not taken by them. So that's a really interesting situation. You've got seen kids from year 6 to kindergarten there, and they're all counting the same numbers. Now, when that gets picked up in the high schools, and the high schools have got a big problem because they have to pick these kids up and continue this. They can't then throw them back into the crap that's in the high school at the moment. And Moree, that's the next step for those teachers. The ones in high school have now got to work with the primary school teachers to make sure this continues. And remember this, ladies and gentlemen, for those of us who think, oh, well, it might work, it may not work, it does work. Because they've got the award from the New South Wales Department of Education. They hand out 1 Minister's Award per year. And I'll guarantee you, every year, schools all over the state are fighting for that label because it'll be increased enrolment, more people coming in, more money to the school, more teachers with jobs, all those things. If you get a tick like that, you really want that tick. And Moree, that would be probably, from my understanding, from a socio-economic level, probably the school that's got the lowest level of any school that's ever got that tick. So they've done it in a place where poverty is rife, where distress is rife, and those kids all seem lovely kids when they're talking about culture. So the more they talk about culture, the nicer they become as people. It's a no-lose situation. For me, what I don't understand, Kev, after giving that award, why didn't the Department of Education send out circulars and get teachers to go to bloody Moree, sit in that classroom and learn how it happens and take it back? Because there's nowhere in New South Wales that doesn't have culture that can give them the names, that can give them the stories. We still have it everywhere in this country. Oh, hang on, they're trying to destroy it right now. Oh, my God, I forgot about that. Oh, it seems like there's 2 different things going on at the same time. One's trying to build it, one's trying to destroy it. But look, it is an outrageously brilliant program that deserves to be heard around the world. I mean, to begin with, I mean, it's in one respect, I did this with 1 degree of hesitation when I put Gympie on here because we had such a fantastic story coming up of positivity. But I've got to apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen. We are original. We have to do what our people need at the moment, and this needs to come up. But it's really important that people focus on both these things, the bad and the good. And that what's happening in Moree, as I said, and as you've said, and as some of your listeners have said, that would be something that they'd be happy to have their children go to. I'd be bloody happy to have my kids go to that. I mean, Evan went to the school. Unfortunately, Evan, they weren't doing that at the time, were they?
I don't remember that.
Now,
I think you were reading the other stuff.
if people want to find out more about this, this is going to be one of the speakers at the weekend, right? Uncle Matthew Priestley. Is he going to be? He's going to be first up after you guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the reason I did that is because I was going to talk that up a bit because it means so much to me, and I wanted Matthew to follow me because, for me, that's basically my teaching career. I found that part of it, which was the poorest area I taught at, the most enjoyable. I can virtually remember every kid that I taught. In fact, Matthew, I taught his brother, Alfie. And I remember what Matthew looked like. It's the only school I can remember all the kids and what they look like. And I remember when Matthew said at the school he's at, there's a girl I did taught whose name was Kylie Doohan. And it was quite amazing because I do remember Kylie and I know exactly what she looked like then. She probably doesn't look the same now. That was about 30 years ago. But what's interesting is Kylie didn't say much. she didn't really say a lot, but even a kid like that, I could remember at that school. And if you go to any other schools, I can barely remember anyone. But that school had such an impact on me because we were teaching culture, and I could see that all of the original kids were really getting involved in it. In fact, I'll give you one example of it when I was teaching, which is veering off a bit, but it gives you an idea why I've got that relationship. I used to teach the AB studies and all that sort of stuff at the school, and I was a head teacher there too, so I had a fair bit of sway on what was going on there. And on one occasion, I was teaching the AB studies, and one of the original kids was talking. Now, I've got to tell you, it wasn't me that did this, but there was a rule that was put out in the community. When they go to my class, no blackfella plays up. And I didn't know that rule, but I always wondered, these kids were really easy to teach. And all the other teachers tell me, oh, he's been horrible, he's been shocking. I think, what are you talking about, man? I can't see any of it.
Fine, yeah.
They're all fine. And this kid started to talk, and I said to him at the time, oh, mate, just calm down a bit. You know, we're doing this other stuff, and old mate, he's talking. One of the kids was talking. And anyway, about 5 minutes later, we forgot and started up again. And the kid, one seat behind him, stood up, walked up over to him, and King hit him. Knocked him out on the ground. I said, what are you doing? Sir, we have a rule here. No one interrupts you, and if they do, I'll sort it out for you. I said, look, I appreciate the gesture, but could I do with it from now on? Because when I can't hit the kids, and you're not supposed to do that either. Oh, he needed it. He did need it, sir. He's being rude. I said, look, we don't do this anymore, please, because by this time the kid had got up, and he was a bit shocked and a bit worse for wear, I've got to tell you. I can say one thing. I never had to tell him to stop talking again. So I'm not saying it didn't work. But by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not recommending that as a classroom behaviour management control. I wouldn't use that myself. But what I'm getting at is that what that shows you is if original kids want to go to a classroom to learn, they will. And teachers don't quite get that. I've been there and I've seen it. And what I'm seeing there is you don't even have to hit the kids. It's one step better. I don't need one of the other kids to keep them under control. These children are learning to control themselves. And that's what teaching should be about. Mm-hmm. Teaching numbers and letters to me from the time I taught was always secondary. Because let's be honest, in every class, no matter how you do it, someone's going to come last. And when you go to high school, I remember once I taught 10M7. Why did I pick 10M7? Because there wasn't an 8 and it was a maths class and I'd never taught it. It was my last year of teaching. I thought, why not do that? Now, those kids will always be at the bottom. And do you know which kids end up causing and creating the most problem in society? The kids in the bottom classes, because they don't succeed at school and they know they fail time after time after time after time. And that is going to happen forever. But this changes it because the major focus is not on the numbers and letters. And I always told kids, those kids who do well at school have one skill only. They can read a little bit better than you. There is so much more to life than reading a bloody book. And I keep telling the kids, do not judge yourself on the marks you get for how well you read. Because in the great scale of things, when we go out and do whatever we're doing, we don't get any more marks for reading books. That doesn't happen after that. It's just in schooling. And I've tried to tell the kids that from the very beginning. This program teaches them that it's true. So I really do feel like that's something that's so important. And I would recommend people, if you haven't seen our other videos, and if you don't even want to watch the sad story in Gympie, but you should, but if you can't, just come for that. Just come for Matthew to find out he's the guy that's telling the kids the stories. When I spoke to him on the phone, every time I speak to him on the phone, there are kids around him all the time asking him questions. Yeah, brother, don't worry, you do that. We'll fix that up, then we'll come back and talk. I can hear how they're talking to him. The same way those kids talk to me when I was there working with them. And they want to be with him and they admire him. And he then becomes this magnificent role model that they see all the time because they do see other role models out in the community. People drinking and stuff like that and getting into strife, they see that constantly. But this guy, they see more. Because think about it. When kids go to school, when they go to school, they see the teacher more than they see parents. They have more face-to-face time with the teachers than they do with their parents at home, because a lot of time they do other things away from their parents, or watch TV or play with their friends. They're in front of you. Your major role model when you're a child is not your parents from the age of 5, are the teachers. And this guy is their main teacher. And they want to be like him. You see, it's got so many levels to it, mate. You've got a role model for Aboriginal people that is all about culture and how great it is, and share it and understand it and become part of it. That's magnificent at that level. And then you've got the program that teaches them how to become good people. This is a win-win situation. I think it's the best program I've ever seen in Australia. And I'm sad that it's been given a Minister's Award and not one teacher from any school in New South Wales has been in contact with that school to find out what's going on. That, to me, is a travesty of justice, and it's also an insult to our children.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I couldn't agree more. Now, I know you've got a story about a killing stone to bring us today, but before we get there, Evan, tell us more about who's going to be lining up on the upcoming conference this weekend, brother.
Yeah, so we've also got Dr. Shauna Bostock. She's going to talk about her history, but through the generations of her family.
5 generations.
5 generations, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a story, aren't we?
A narrative. So that's going to be very interesting.
She's original.
Yeah. And who else have we got?
We got Leah.
We've got Leah, yeah. You've sent some questions over to her contact, haven't you?
Yeah, look, as you know, I'm not going to try and explain who Leah is and what she's doing with her guide, because you're aware of that anyway. Yeah. What I'm doing this time, what I tend to do, Kevin, because it's not hard to make these, it's really difficult to keep making questions up for this, because, I'm dancing in the dark. I know nothing about out there, and all of us do, and it's really difficult. But last time round, he threw me big time. Oh, man. It knocked me around. I mean, I didn't know what to say. It happens a lot now. That's why I ask more questions. But I asked a question, and I thought it was a no-brainer, mate. And it was this. And this is why I've got more questions that came out of it. I said to him, look, up down here where we are in Chaos Land, we got 3. Most people believe there's 1 of 3 happens when things happen when we die. Either we die and nothing. We vanish into nothing. There's no more of us, and that's the end of the story. Or, according to some religions, we go to heaven. We have one life here, and wherever we're born and whatever happens to us, that's it. That's your only chance to make a statement. And so if you're born in absolute poverty, you got the same chances to... You don't have the same chances, obviously. That's what I always found difficult about it. And it's one go. Or the one I believe in, which is reincarnation. And I said at the end of this, well, which one is it? Because it can't be all of them. Didn't I, Evan?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I said that for sure.
Yeah, it can be one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. Which one is it? And I knew the answer. This was the one question I answered, Kevin. I knew the answer was going to be reincarnation. And his reply was all of the above. And I just thought,
all the above, the multiple choice.
I thought, oh man, fair income. I can't even get the bloody easy ones right. So I had a long think about it, and I now know he's right. And what I'm doing this time is I'm asking a lot of questions about primarily heaven and hell. I want to get some clarity on it, and I've got to tell you, it's very difficult with this being, because he's working on a different level to anyone on this planet. He's way above anything we know. And I want to find out about, like one of the things I said there is, I'm starting to get this idea of what heaven and hell is, because I said, look, when people from elsewhere, they've been over, when they die for a while and come back, and they have a description of where they've been, the one thing it shares is never the same. Every person's story of heaven is different. It could be a field, it could be a beach, it could be with some people. It's never the same. And I'm starting to realise that heaven and hell are constructs we create. We make them themselves, and they're within us. And that's why what we see is our interpretation of how it fits us. Well, I wanted to get some more detail around that. So I've asked quite a few questions about, because my figure is, if humans understood fully why we're here, what our role is, and what happens next, if they understood it completely, I think this planet would be a better place. So I'm going to try and see if we can chase that up, but with no guarantee. And in fact, I know for a fact some of the answers I'm going to get are going to knock me over and I won't know what to say. But we're going to continue doing that. We might have a pause soon because we might have an overload in our next one because we had to move Dr. Rita back. We might pause for one before we pick it up again because we've only got a certain amount of time.
That'll give you a chance to come up with some more questions.
God, because it gets hard after a while, I've got to tell you.
It must be quite intimidating, though, coming up with the questions as well, Stephen, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is intimidating, mate, because honestly, I mean, I know that some people probably think it's all a load of rubbish, but I'm pretty sure the people who've heard the answers are starting to realise, my God, this is outside anything I've read in a book. It is intimidating because it's a bit like, mate, to be honest, I feel like I'm in kindergarten in a university and I'm walking in there with the knowledge I've got from kindergarten and I'm trying to now deal with a professor that's running the bloody place. And I feel like I haven't really got a clue. And I don't believe anyone else on this planet will be any different, any further advanced than what I am on this, because I really don't know what I'm doing after time. And I've got to tell you, I've got to be honest about that. I look forward to that as much as I dread it. I do dread it because any other talk we're doing, whether I'm doing an interview, whether we're talking with someone else, we've got a pretty good idea where we're going. When I do this with him, the one thing I've realised is that as we go through these questions, I'm going to get completely and utter lost. And I'm going to be sitting there thinking, what the hell am I going to say when Leah finishes? And that's why I originally asked 8 questions and I've gone to 10 or 11 now, because I'm now getting to the stage where I'm going to have to just say on a couple of them, pass, I'll get back to you. I just don't get it for now. I need to think about it. So it is intimidating, but I think it's important that we do this as often as we can, because I'm learning stuff I didn't know that I was bloody sure I knew this meant this. What I'm learning is the further I go down this path, I'm starting to realise that I don't think I know much at all, mate.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a situation where I think we all are in a situation we don't know. Yeah, so who else have we got, Evan? I think that's it, isn't it?
Auntie Minnie Mace.
Oh, Auntie Minnie Mace, yeah. Yeah, that was interesting, that one, because what happened was Duncan Rhodes from Nexus sent us this thing about Gympie and sent it and said, can you guys do something? And that's how this started. And then I rang up Alan Parsons, another elder we've had on quite a few times, quite a very knowledgeable man. I said, mate, why don't you and Auntie Minnie each do a half-hour session, and then we can get Diane and their mob to come in for 20 minutes to tell us what's going on now, because that'll be the sad part of the story. And Alan said, no, that wouldn't work. I said, oh, why not? He said, just Auntie Minnie, not me. She knows so much about this. Her wisdom on this is phenomenal. Now, she's not Cubby. She's not Cubby. She's a different tribe. But these stories get around. And Auntie Minnie Mace has this amazing, massive retention rate where she remembers everything. And she's got all these stories. And she knows the guy, David Green, and she will find out about this guy. His great-great-grandfather was basically the first white fella to get into Gympie. And he actually rode from tribe to tribe in his horses, and he was initiated by them, and they taught him everything. And he knows the great-great-grandson of, she knows him, and she's going to contact him and get all that information and get this right. So we're going to get stories that come from the first white fella that ever went. Oh, Evan's holding it up.
Right.
Yeah, that's his stories. Yeah, he's put them all out. Now, this stuff comes from the first white fella, and it's all about the Gympie Pyramid and how important it is, and the fact that the Phoenicians and others came here to mine for gold, all sorts of stuff. It gives you the full story. She's going to give you everything, a big background story for that. And then we have Diane, and another elder. We're not fully sure which elder it's going to be. It was Booker at one stage.
I think it's Auntie Dawn.
Auntie Dawn, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's so much going on with that on a daily basis that they are going to get someone on that day, and they want to do it live, don't they?
Yeah.
We're scared of that, but we're going to try and do it live. So bear with us. If there is a problem of doing it live, I want to tell everyone now, do not worry, because we will get it up, and you've got the thing for 28 days, so you will get to hear it. If it does fall down, because sometimes it does, we will load it up and you'll still get to see it. So don't worry about that.
Now, somebody's asking quickly, why is it called the Gympie Pyramid?
Well, that's not its proper name, but we can't say that properly. Gympie Pyramid, because it's a 7-step pyramid and it's near a place called Gympie. And that particular place, Gympie, is, as an area, I mean, we've got an amazing site there too, but we're not doing it this time because that would clutter up things, wouldn't it? Yeah. It is an amazing site, and it's near Gympie, and it's, I'm going to try and say it. It says something like Jackie Kundu. I think that's close to it. That's what they call it, Jackie Kundu. Yeah, I think I've got it pretty close to right. So that's their name, but the whitefellas call it that because it's built, it's a pyramid, and whitefellas always have really creative ways to name things. So because it's a pyramid near Gympie, someone sat down and thought, what can we call it? I know, let's call it Gympie Pyramid. Yeah.
My favourite naming was, it came out because it would have been some settler or explorer has asked, you know, what's this area? And they would have said something in first language. And they've gone, oh, cool, we'll call it that. And then they worked out what it meant. It was like, it's a lake. Stupid white man.
That's what it was. Stupid white man, it's a lake. That's
Brilliant.
now its official name.
Brilliant. I love it. Now, before I let you guys go, I have to hear this story about the killing stone.
Oh, yeah, look, I think we should. Okay, the killing stone. Let me just I'll introduce it. I've shown you, but now I'll show the mob that are listening here.
Check this
Here it
thing
is.
out.
It's a, I've got to hold it the right
There
way.
you go.
And you turn it around like that, and this is its shape like this. But I want you to look at the top bit there. Now that, it's shining. It's
Yep.
supposed to be. And the academics, look at that, the sharpness of that. Now, when I first saw that, and by the way, this is a coat. It's been coated underneath. I've got grains I can see there. It's like some sort of compressed sandstone underneath that's been completely
This
coated.
is something that's really common then, right? Coating of rocks.
Oh, yeah. It's so common that we just sort of say, oh, yeah, another coated one.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting with this rock is that, oh, God, it's heavy. Whitefellas called it an axe. It weighs 6 kilos. There's no hafting groove there. There's no strapping shown. I've got axes where there's strapping shown. And I want you to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Hunter-gatherer society carries around an axe that weighs 6 kilos with the actual the rock, and the wood that carries it, that's going to carry this and wield it, is going to weigh another 10 kilos. And then you've got to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, since we didn't build monuments and we didn't make massive buildings, why would you make an axe? And by the way, look at it. It's never been used. There's not a chip on it. Now, you've got to say to yourself, if it's never been used and it took so long to make, and then you've got to ask the question, what would they chop down with that? Bloody big tree, but why would they do that? Because we never made a house, according to the whitefellas. We did. But it doesn't make sense on any level. It was never used. It is not an axe. Now, it is a ceremonial axe head, and that's the story I want to share before we finish today. So what happened with this? Roz bought it. It was on the open market, going anywhere in the world. And as you know, all our rocks are on country and they're going back on country, so that's all good. We don't have to explain that. It's all being arranged at the moment. I'm having a meeting on Saturday with the committee of 12 elders and whitefellas too that are doing this and setting the site up, so that's all done. Anyway, this rock was bought by Roz, and she sent it to me. She said, look at that. And when I got it, we all thought, this is fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Wow, what a deadly rock. And look at the technology to make it. I'm thinking, that ain't stick, stone, bone technology. This is brilliant. So the problem with this, mate, is when you get a rock, and I'm sure you'll know that your original people, like Donnie and others know this too, when you get something new, you spend time with it. You don't make assumptions, you just hold it. Now, normally when I get my rocks, they weigh a half a kilo, quarter of a kilo. I carry them in my hand and walk around with them, put them in my pocket. And when you've got 6 kilos, you can't put it in your pocket. You really can't carry it far. It's too bloody heavy. So I sat with it. And I thought, I'll spend 2 days, I'll sit with it some time, then I'll start working on it. And I sat with it for a while on the first day. And then after about an hour, something happened. My little finger, I'm going to hold it up now. Oh, where is it? Oh, that one. Oh, God.
You had it.
Oh, there it is. That one there. My little finger froze. I thought, well, that's a bit different. I couldn't feel it. It was like I had frostbite. Now, I was in the middle of winter, and as you know, winter is cold, and it was cold that day. It was about 19 degrees Celsius, which is about 65 Fahrenheit. The sun was out. It's about as cold as it gets here. I suppose you might get slightly colder days in Scotland than us. I'm not sure, but that might happen in winter. That was cold for us because we live in the subtropics. So it wasn't that cold. And I had it in my hand and it froze. And I thought, well, what's going on here? And I rubbed it. I put it in hot water. I rubbed it, and it just wouldn't come good, mate. And after about an hour and a half, I'm thinking, hang on, if the blood doesn't get in here soon, I won't have a finger. That's the rule.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking, I think I'm losing my little finger here. And then after I thought that, almost instantaneously, the blood came through. And I'm thinking, I think if I went to a doctor with that, they would say that's not a good sign. But being a male, as you know, we don't do that sort of stuff. Until the limb gets cut off, we don't go near doctors. We just carry on regardless and say, she'll be right. So I did the normal Australian male approach.
Yes.
I'll look the other way and not even think about it. So the next day, I come back and I'm going to sit down with the rock again. Now, it hadn't dawned on me the rock was doing this yet. I wasn't thinking like that because this had never happened before. The rocks have always accepted me. So the next day, I start to hold it again, and about 10 minutes in, it's not the little finger, it's this one now. That one's frozen completely, and that's a bigger one. And I'm thinking, I think we have a physical problem here. I think I might be due for a visit to the hospital and maybe doing some work with Evan. Evan works in the funeral industry. I thought we might be getting a cheap funeral because he can bury me for free, can't you, Evan?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I thought, hang on, it looks like I'm leaving. So I'm sitting there thinking, this ain't right. This ain't right. Something's going on. Then it dawned on me. The 2 times this happened, I've held this rock. And it dawned on me what was happening. It wasn't me. The rock was actually trying to hurt me, kill me. And I said to the rock, I get it now. You don't want me to hold you anymore, do you? I'm going to put you down. As soon as I put it down, the blood came back into my finger. And I started to realise this is a rock. Yeah, it's built like a weapon. I think it's used like a weapon. Right? It's got energy within it, but that energy is not, it's not cosmic. I want to love you. I don't want to assuage your chakras. I think it's more a matter of, I don't like you. I'm now going to kill you. So I worked that out. And so the rock sat away from the other rocks because I knew that within it, it was primarily, and I've got about 4 rocks that are killing rocks, and I keep them separate to an extent. The other ones can stay with the other rocks because they're not quite as belligerent as this rock is. So there's the rock sitting on its own. So far, not much of a story, but it gets to one, doesn't it, Evan?
It does. It certainly does.
So the next thing you know, Roz rings me up, and she says, I've had 2 rocks on my coffee table now. One weighs 8 kilos, and the other one is shaped in the form of a skull, and it's a crystal, and it weighs about 5. And the second one is an axe. I said, oh, yeah, we've got an axe too. And it weighs 8, and this one's 5. Oh, that's interesting. She said, I've got some bad news for you, Steve. I said, well, what is that? She said, you're getting both of them. I said, Roz, you've sent me 50, 60 rocks you bought. You've never said I'm bad news. I'm sending them to you. She said, no, I need to tell you what happened. I said, what's that? She said, I've had them on the coffee table for 2 years. I walked past them, they called me. because she's an empath. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, the rocks do this, and if you don't, come and see our show. I'll explain how this happens in more detail. She said they called me over, and they said to me when I came over that they both wanted to come down to me to join with the rock I've got, and they want to work, and they've got information they want to put out. And Roz said, well, I want you to stay here. Could I look at that information? Could I seek it out? And this is what she told me. The rock said, don't go there. If you even try to do this, we will kill you straight away. All right? So she said, I'm sending them to you, but they want to kill. And they want to be with that rock to do that. I said, oh, right. Okay, thanks, Roz. I'm not so sure I wanted them after all.
I really want these.
All right, so, okay. We got the 3 rocks. And to begin with, they taught me a little bit. They told me how to put them in functional formation, okay? And I did for a while, but I never put them near the others because they're different stories. And I remember on one occasion we had an elder with us, Evan knows quite well, Gympie. And he walked near the rocks, and he said they tried to throw him on the ground. They called him towards him and said, if you follow us, we will give you everything you want. Everything. Just do our bidding. Because he's a strong elder. Evan's had a few issues with him, but he is a strong elder. You can't deny that, can you, Evan? Yeah. Anyway, as he walked away, they tried to throw him on the ground, and he told us about that. I had another woman who came here once, and she sat, probably 30 metres away, and burst into tears and said those things could kill the world. They could kill the world, and she ran away. And anyway, this happened time after time after time. So we knew something was going on. And Evan's mates with them, aren't you, Evan?
Yeah, they seem to talk to me a little bit.
And every time we've been cursed, and we've been cursed a lot, every time that happens, they go to Evan, don't they, Evan?
They do.
And what do they tell you?
We'll take care of it.
We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. And I've said to Evan them time, we're not doing this business. We don't do this sort of stuff anymore. We're going to put up with it. So that's what we're doing, mate. And we've been cursed a few times, very little effect. And I've a couple of times, Evan nearly died once, and I've nearly died twice, bad curses. So we're fully aware of them. We know they exist. Then one day, now I'm getting to the story. Sometimes when you're dealing with blackfellas, and you'll know this from Donnie, we go around in a circle, so people have got to be patient. And one day, I've been away for a couple of days, and I come back here, and Evan's back at the computer machine thing here, and he says to me he's been cursed. Yeah. Evan, explain why you upset the elder and he made him curse you.
He was threatening to kill people in my Facebook group.
And swearing at them.
So I said, can't do that. And then, kicked him out of the group because I can't have people threatening each other.
We have a rule. You use bad language or threaten people, we throw you out, no questions asked. So what did he do to you, Evan?
Cursed me.
To kill?
To kill if I touch any original
artifact or rock.
I will die.
He'll die. And I said to Evan, oh, yeah, right. We've had a lot of people who said this stuff that can't do it, okay? And we've had some that can. Most of them say it. We know others, don't we, Evan? They can't do a thing. But Evan was a little bit crook, weren't you?
A little bit, yeah.
A couple of the symptoms we normally get, but not bad.
Yeah, and I think I was hanging out washing on the line or something, mundane like that, and looked up and there were 2 hawks, but with their talons interjoined, tumbling through the air.
That's right.
Yep, acrobating, I don't know what it's called, but they split off just above my head and then flew off.
And our elder uses hawks and eagles for messages. So we were getting a message, and obviously they were concerned. Now, Evan got sick, and he was feeling a bit ill. I said, well, we'll keep an eye on it, mate. If you're just a bit sick, it's not a problem. We'll put up with it. So it's okay if you're sick, isn't it, Evan? We'll put up with it. But I went to play tennis.
Yeah.
And I started playing the first set. Man, I had nothing. I had no energy whatsoever. And this is one of the first things that happened over the times I've been cursed. And I played a guy that I'd played before, and it's the first to 21 points, and I beat him 21-2 last time. And this time I was up about, I think, 16-1, and I lost the match 21-17. I couldn't move. I had no energy. I was like someone sucked everything out of me. It was the curse. So I'm driving back in the car and I said, man, if we don't protect ourselves, we're going to get killed soon. And I thought, I'm done with this. I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. So we got back in the morning and I contacted him and I told him to begin with. I said, mate, this is wrong. You threatened to kill someone. You were swearing at them. And we've told you, it's up on our thing there. You shouldn't do it. And Evan did what he had to do. This is the way we do things. And also, when do blackfellas do curses over the internet? This is just wrong on every level.
How postmodern.
How postmodern.
How 2021, eh?
Yeah, welcome to the new world, because I don't believe in this stuff. And I said, I'm not happy. Well, I got out of that. I did well. I got cursed and told if I touch a rock or anything, I will die straight away. And the curse continued. And I decided then, right then, I'm putting the rocks in formation. I'm facing him where he is. By the way, he was in West Australia and we're in New South Wales, so he's about 4,000 kilometres away from where we are. And I knew his name. I stood inside the rock in formation, said his name 3 times. And when I did, I told him I was going to do that. I actually didn't. I said, I'm going to do this now. I said, I've got good news and bad news. I said, the good news is I'm going out to the rocks, and you've told me if I touch a rock, they're going to kill me straight away. Well, the good news is if I don't come back, your curse has worked. I said, but I got bad news. I said, if I do come back and I've touched these 3 killing rocks and they haven't killed me, you got a problem. So I went outside, put him in formation. They seemed quite excited, I thought.
Yeah, they've just been hanging out.
They've been hanging out for so long to kill someone. Oh, my God, this is it. We're ready. Come on, kids, let's get together. So I went back inside and I said, I told him, I said, they're in formation. I said, mate, I'm still alive. You got a problem. And you said, Evan, wait for a while, didn't you?
Yeah,
wait for a while, just in case.
What if he doesn't see his messages?
Oh, he did, didn't he? 2 minutes later, we get a response. Put the rocks away. Stop it. He then said this. He said, I'm calling off the curse. It was a weird message, wasn't it, Evan?
Yeah.
I'm calling off the curse, but I'm going to kill your wife. I wrote back and said, that's like someone who says, I'm not racist, but it doesn't work with me. The rocks are staying in formation. I said, knowing what the rocks are like, I said, you got 20 minutes, mate, and you'll be dead. And he was dying. I can tell you that. Because then he wrote back again and he said something like, you've got powerful magic, but you don't know how to use it. But for God's sake, turn them off. Turn them off now. I'm in pain. And I wrote again and said, what about my wife? No, it's off. And we did. I then went and turned it off, and he wrote back one last time, didn't he, Evan? That's a classic. He wrote back after I turned them off, and he wrote back and said, I've got nothing more to do with you now, so leave me alone and don't hurt me anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you're the one who actually tried to kill us, and all we did was defend ourselves, and now he's trying to play out that he's the victim. And he has ever since, hasn't he? Yeah. But he's never come back, never came back. And since that time, I wrote an article, and it was actually taken. I'm a tragic for progressive rock in the 70s and 80s and 60s. It was taken from a band called Colosseum, and they did an album called For Those About to Die, We Salute You. And I wrote the article called For Those About to Die, Those About to Curse, We Salute You. And it was about the fact that rocks are now in permanent formation, and ever so happy, aren't they, Evan? You've been past them. And what they are to do is if anyone curses us, they deal with it. And we don't get a chance to intervene, and we will know nothing about it. And we've told people that, which means if you curse us, whatever you've sent, they will send back with interest, and you will not be able to defeat it.
But also on a positive note,
yes,
amongst all that, those rocks that their nature is to kill is actually protecting now.
Yeah, and
their nature.
They are changing. The rock that I held was the most conciliatory of the 3. The 2 that Roz sent me were pretty shitty pieces of work, I've got to tell you. I have now started to get a slight relationship with that rock, and they are enjoying the fact they're acting as sentries. Not actually, because rocks, they don't care about time. Time for them is nothing because they just keep hanging. It means no difference to them. But they have a role now, and they're not going out and indiscriminately killing, which is what they were doing before. They're now protecting the other rocks and us. They're now protecting us and acting as sentries, and they are happy doing it. And I mean, right now, they're out of formation because I brought one to show you, and they're on our farm in constant formation. And since then, we have not been cursed or harmed by anyone. And I'm going to tell people, if you do want to curse us, don't. Because we won't know about it, but you will. And you will know about it straight away. Because that particular person was 4,000 kilometres away, and within a matter of a minute was ill from the time we put those rocks in formation. Now, it is a negative story because I am going to do a story about, I'm going to show you more of the rocks. We're going to do a few things with it. We're going to use some rods and crystals to show you how they work. We're going to do it in a bit more depth. And I'm going to talk about 6 events, and I call it killing and healing. And 3 of them are killing stories about the rocks. And by the way, one isn't about a person who died. I've got to tell the truth. It happened. Somebody died from touching a rock, and I told them, put it away, bury it, but they wouldn't listen, and they're dead. And it happened quickly. Then I'm going to talk about them healing people, because you've got to have both sides of the story.
It's both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and that happened where somebody came and asked me, and I'll tell more about it in the day, but I am going to tell you this much. I did it to heal them only, and this person and another person were throwing hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of dollars to me, and I didn't want to do it, and we fought and fought and fought, and eventually they just threw the money at us and went away. Now, I'm going to tell you, you wouldn't have done that unless whatever we did to those people was correct, and we did 2 different things. For one person, they had a horribly bent back. It can never be complete. I've never seen a back like that in my life, and I took the pain away. And to this day, it's never completely gone, but he's never been better. And the other person had, this was a weird one, because I thought maybe I could heal you. The other person had a psychological problem. But oh, shit, I don't know about that. And I used that one, and I'll talk more about on the day, and believe it or not, she's completely healed. And she was a mess. So I'm going to finish. The reason why, the way we've done this, Kev, is I've started by talking about the killing incidents, because that's important to understand. There's 2 sides to it. And I'm finishing by talking about the healing, and I finish by talking about what they did at Uluru at that ceremony, because I want people to understand these rocks have a role to play in the future. The 3 I've got to protect us forever. They don't go on formation in another state, do they? They stay with us because we need that protection. And by the way, I can tell you, my elders have all said the same thing. They don't want those rocks. None of them. They've all said, you can have them. We want the rest, all the flash rocks, but you can have the nasty, angry rocks. We don't get to keep any of the others. No, no, no. We have to give them to country, which is fine. We don't have an issue with that. But people, if they hear those stories, they will then understand that what these rocks offer in the future is real. And that's why I wanted to do both sides, to let people know, A, they do, and I still cringe when I say this word, they do have magic. I'm sorry, but they do. And the reason is I've been forced into saying that because I have seen, in fact, I think we wrote all up in 2 articles on this. I think we wrote about 10 incidents, but I've had 4 more. I couldn't fit them in. I had to say which ones do I put in and which ones don't. We've had so many incidents of these rocks doing things. And see, the point is, I'm going to say to people when they're put in complete formation, that will then mean that when people sit inside them, they will get that energy. Now, what we are also doing, and probably should close with this, to make this completely positive, a lot of people don't live in Australia that listen to what we do. And they've asked us, this wasn't our idea, it was theirs. Could we put them in formation and put the camera above them and film it? And then they could meditate, sit there, play music, do what they want, and we put it on for, say, half an hour, 40 minutes. And that is what we're going to do at the end. When we've finished everything, I am going to put them in formation. I think an elder's coming up to sit inside them, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you won't be seeing that, of course. but I'm going to put them in formation for half an hour, and I'm going to leave them on the screen, and after half an hour, 40 minutes, we'll stop. That'll be the end of the show. Now, I don't know if that will work the same way it works when people sit inside. And I've seen when people sit inside and no one has ever told me it didn't work. I don't know whether it'll work like that. They haven't given me a yes or no. We'll find out, but it's worth a try. So we're going to finish the whole day. I'm going to start by talking about the rocks, the good and the bad. Then we're going to do Matthew talking about the education, then the Gympie stuff, then Sean is going to talk, then Lee's going to talk about what's going on in the future. Then we're going to finish off with 40 minutes of complete silence. So it'll be a different presentation. We're going to go to both sides of the equation insofar as we're going to do the good and the bad with the rocks. And today on this one, we're going to do Gympie, which is appalling, and we're going to do Moree East Primary School, which is stunning. So we're going to do both sides all the way through the day. A bit different. It wasn't going to be that to begin with, was it, Evan? But once Gympie came in, well, then that changed things and we sort of reset it. So that's where we're going, mate.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. And for people out there, you can find out more about that at ouralienancestry.net. Evan, any other details you want to pass on?
I guess I'd encourage people if they're really interested to subscribe to the conferences as well. That's an option. That's a bit cheaper, actually.
It's $15, isn't it?
Yeah, $15.99.
And do they get access to everything we've done?
Yes, plus then what we've been doing is for just our members, once a month we just do a private little chat just with them. So they get exclusive content as well.
And they get to ask questions?
Yeah, we answer their questions and all of that. So there are advantages of being a subscriber. There's my little ad.
No, awesome. And for anyone out there who hasn't attended one of these conferences yet, please, what are you waiting for? It's full of great information. You hear from the guys, but not only that, some of the information, some of the speakers you'll never have heard before. And I swear it's one of the best experiences I've had time and time again. I'm looking forward to it already, guys. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting you back on next month as well, okay?
Oh, we really enjoy talking to you, mate. It's
mutual,
like
it's mutual, man. Yeah.
I'm pleased it is, because it is from our point of view too. We really enjoy spending time with you and really appreciate the fact that you actually cover it. So it's big for us too, mate. We really love talking to you. One day, I hope, when the world gets better, we'll get to meet face to face.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. So I'm going to let you get back to it, but thank you for your time today. Thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of the audience as well. And I can't wait to see you both at the weekend again, all right?
Okay, mate. Thank you so much.
Catch you later,
thanks
guys.
again, mate.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, there we go. So a bit of a different setup today. Obviously, issues at the network, but great information from Evan and Stephen Strong. They're like a guilty pleasure of mine. I love the information. The guys themselves are exactly the way that they come across on camera. Two of the easiest people to work with, and the information is just fascinating. So on that note, I'm going to say cheerio to all of you disco people. No, the Twitch people first. I'll say a cheerio to all of you. I'll be back tomorrow with Freaky Friday.